Well, welcome everyone. It's really great to see all of you. I know we have others who will probably be joining us as we go along. But thank you for joining us for our inaugural, maybe our first, what could be annual block party at the end of the year, an opportunity for us to gather as those who've experienced some of our solutions, specifically flawless consulting, or perhaps you attended Leaders Convener, Powered at Work. Maybe you're a fan of the work and a fan of Peter. Whichever road got you here, we're really excited to have you join us. It's our hope to spend some time together, chatting and learning with Peter, asking him some questions. We had some great questions that were submitted to us before the session. We'll also have an opportunity for discussion around some other ideas that may come up. But it's a great way for us to gather at the end of the year, reflect upon some of the things that we've learned and discovered, connect with others who are experiencing some of the same things, and of course, spend some time with Peter. So, Peter, would you like to share a few words to start?
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Uh, uh, it's the whole idea of flawless consulting kind of was forced upon me. A long, long time ago, I decided that when I consulted, I didn't have any control over my schedule. Somebody calls, you go. But if you run a workshop, you know 2 months ahead of time where you're going to be. And at that time, it was the 70s. I decided in the middle of all the stuff of the 70s, I was going to help raise my children. So I renegotiated my contract with them. And I was in charge of cooking, clothing, and transportation. And they would still call me mother for about 2 years into that. And then when I decided to go back to work, I thought, well, how can I? And so that's where we started offering this idea. It was from an IT manager at Esso at the time, Exxon now, who said, we know we're right, but nobody listens to us. What's going on here? And he said, would you run a workshop for us? And we knew him from other things we were doing, team building, stuff like that. And so we did for a few years. And then I don't know, when I decided to do work, I thought, well, so we had 6 people in Princeton. For the first, it was 4 days, 3 days. And it turned out that I learned that the experience is what counts. And the workshops work not because of the ideas, but the experiences we give people. And then the book just it did fine. And I was embarrassed when I wrote it because it was so practical. My partners were very conceptual people. I didn't know what they were talking about most of the time, but they were great partners. And I thought, oh my God, I had boxes and lists in it. Anyway, the ideas have been durable. And I don't know quite why, but I think it gave people a way of being more authentic wherever they are. And I think the methodology came from my work with Gestalt therapy. And I lived in my head, and Gestalt therapy suggested I might also have a body. And how do you feel and what do you want was all they talked about. I wanted to analyze. Even 40 years later, I got in a workshop. I said, this was really great. Why was this workshop so good? And the guy said, Peter, can't you just enjoy life without having to analyze it? And I thought, no. Why was this? And so it's nice the restraint is it's called flawless consulting. So I wouldn't call it that now because I think it's a way of being with people. But the whole basic idea was that no matter what content you have, if you want it to matter, the relationship is the delivery system of knowledge. And it's amazing to me, I get these wonderful calls from people using the book in a college course. I just had one from Texas A&M, 30 minutes. And what's radical was they actually got to experience the ideas. They weren't just taught them. And so our work is to make experience, call it connection, the point. And I'm just more and more realizing how willing I've been to be marginal. I've chosen to stand on the side, be a facilitator. Uh, so now our thinking is that, well, why don't we treat ourselves as if we are the catalyst for the future, not helping other people transform, change, learn, or grow, but who we are and how we show up is the methodology for departing the colonial world. And for some reason, this methodology, it works. I have trouble practicing it. I go to a lot of meetings where we analyze the world, and I never get around to saying, what do you want from me? Probably because I'm terrified. And I never say to people, here's what I want from you. And the best part of the workshop was when we put people on video. We used to lug video cameras everywhere we went, tripods, everything. And people sit for 2 minutes and say, here's what I want from you, to anybody they wanted to. And it was a wonderful moment of reflection, of being assertive. And then when we watched the video, we'd ask them, what did you like about what you just saw of yourself doing it? And of course, everybody said, well, I use my hands too much. I talk too fast. No, what did you like that you saw? And that's a beautiful question. And that led us to the gift conversation a bunch of stuff later. But it's very powerful to see myself having the right, especially for women, because if women are assertive or direct, they're declared they're too much. And I think I learned a lot from that video is good or better than therapy. If I see myself and I'm asked with 5 other people in a circle, what did you like about what you saw? It's a nightmare. Maybe I'll have to come to terms with I was born. I did have a life. I still do. Anyway, so thank you for caring about this. So many of you are creating it. And also, last thought, it puzzled me. I ran it a lot of times. For years, that's all we did. Thousands of times. 2-day workshop, standing in front of a group. And I thought, why do I still have energy? It's because you never know what's going to happen. And that's because it's an experience-based world. And so every experience is, you just don't know. It's not just, you're not running a workshop, you're creating a context and a structure for people to decide what they want to make of these 2 days. And if I can decide what I want to make of these 2 days, I can decide what to do with my life. That's why we're going to ask you, why was it important for you to be here today? That's a huge question, because if I can figure out why I was here today, then maybe that's why there's something bigger than that. Last thought is, somebody said that every moment is a mixture of methodology and metaphor. And I like that. So in this small way of being together, these 2 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, one day, it's a place where I can experience a version of how I want the world to be. And it doesn't mean I can create that world, because there's a lot of stuff going on. But at least I have that moment, that version. And it also allows me to let go of what works. The most paralyzing question in the world is what works. Evidence-based blank is an illusion. And so all these questions, and the resistance is the other thing. I used to run tea groups. I thought I was going to end, but I guess I'm not. I used to run tea groups, and it was very confrontational, because you sit with 12 people for days and you say to them, okay, I'm here to help you learn from what happens at this table. You don't say anything more. What the hell are you doing here? What kind of facilitator are you? And people get mad at me. I can remember doing workshops that they would stand up and come after me. My back was against the wall. Peter, I'm wasting my time here. I came here to learn something. Are you going to teach me something? What? And after a while, I realized that their anger had nothing to do with me. And it was useful. And so the whole resistance notion came that the therapy doesn't begin until the client gets mad at the therapist. Thank you. This is wonderful. I love what you're saying. Thank you. Thank you. Nothing's happened yet. And they say, what the hell am I doing here? Now we've done something. And I thought that's the other part of the flawless idea, was that resistance is a step, useful step, as long as I don't take it personally. And I'm still trying to figure that out. So let me thank you. That's my opening presentation. If you want PowerPoints, we can send them to you, but they will have nothing to do with what I just talked about. I once gave a talk in Atlanta. Jerry Pavlov, I said, you handle the overheads. We had little things you put down. And they're out of sequence. And Jerry said, Peter, you're not talking according to the overheads. What should we do? And I said, well, Jerry, you do the overheads in the sequence they're in. I'll do my talk, and then people can decide what they want to pay attention to. And all these little things stay with you because there were moments in which you realized what mattered in that moment. And it had nothing to do with overheads or even what I was saying. It's the fact that we decide how we want to be here, which is what we're going to do now. Anyway.
Thank you, Peter. So in the spirit of connecting and the question that you already raised, we're going to send everybody into small breakouts for about 10 minutes to have a conversation, little connection before content, because connection is content, and share with each other, why was it important for you to be here today? So 10 minutes in your breakouts, meeting new people, maybe reconnecting with some that you've worked with in the past. Why was it important for you to be here today?
And don't be helpful.
That's right.
That was the other thing. It took me forever I haven't even learned it. The most loving question in the world is, why does that matter to you? Sorry.
You're good. Thank you, Peter. Maya will open up our breakout rooms. We'll see you back here momentarily. Thank you, Maya. Getting us off to those breakout rooms and back again. Appreciate it. So as you're coming back to the main room, you had an opportunity to meet with others in your breakouts. What struck you in that conversation?
What struck me, with my hand raised,
Thank you,
was
Ryan.
the connection between consulting and medicine and healthcare, right? Evidence-based medicine. We have to be evidence-based.
Mhm.
Well, maybe that's not the whole situation. And that was what struck me from one of my participants
Oh,
who was in the session.
thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
It was Sheehan. So by the way, just so
Thank you. Shin.
Yeah, hey. I was just saying that I was really grateful for the algorithm paired me and Peter and Block and Mary together. One of the things that struck me was that Peter said that he took a writing lesson to write Flawless. And I was just like, what? He
And
is these books I read, it's just like he has a way with words, and that's what struck me actually.
I didn't know that. Thank you, Shin. Any others? What struck you? Dan.
The environments we were talking about that we work in and around, and the sort of the common sense that's out there, which maybe doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But people are very invested in it, and maybe I've been there. I'm in there myself at times as well, of course, and it does make sense, or it's comforting, or that's what everybody else is doing, so I'm going to go that way as well. And it's very easy to make wrong, or that I've got a view that's better than somebody else's, and then not useful either, because
Mhm.
no one wants to be wrong, and I want to be wrong, and like that. So Yeah, I just think those structures we find around us and part of as well, they seem so baked in, and I think we have a lot invested in them. Um, so it's fun and challenging to see how you can develop something else or provide something else other than that. So that's what I share about that.
Thank you, Dan. Well,
This question, what struck you? All these have a political dimension as to whose voice matters. And the world wants us to be credentialed. And I've realized that people in charge, it's not they don't want to change the culture, they can't, because they're imprisoned by their credentials. And so what struck you means that my reflection on my own experience is where the power resides. Now we have a speaker to get you in the room, but once you're in the room, your job is to renegotiate the social contract and say, I can control how we're going to be together simply because I'm in this room. I can't talk other people about. And so there's a structure to this. And the structure, for Flawless is tell me what you're up against. What do you want from me? Here's what I want from you. When they say, okay, let's talk about it a little bit. And then the whole thing is leading up to one question. What's your role in creating the very thing that's causing you such pain? And in that question, I become an agent, a player, an actor. Whatever drama is, I'm paying attention at the moment. And without that question, I'm doomed to be helpless, doomed to analyze the world instead of impact the world. And then the final thing is to say, well, I know you want recommendations from me, but I don't give recommendations only because I don't think they're useful. So I say, I'm here in your life to help you see that you have choices that weren't obvious to you before I showed up. And all of these things are of a theme. And what struck you is a piece of that. Now, some people answer that question with a small lecture. Okay, and half the time the questions don't work. It doesn't matter. In the question that you ask, you're declaring what matters in the world. What struck you? What do you want from me? Here's what I want from you. What's your contribution to the problem? What's the crossroad? All these questions aren't just us connecting with each other. They're also creating in that moment as an artist or the way the world might reclaim control of its own being. And the other question I loved early on was, at what point you tell your parents, I'm not the son you had in mind. Now, you may not want to say them to them directly, but as soon as I realize I'm not the son they had in mind, oh my God, now what do I do? Now, I whisper, and they're not the parents I had in mind either. And I like the notion that there's no such thing as a happy childhood. Okay. Anybody says, I had a happy childhood. No, you didn't have a happy. Life is difficult. It's complicated. But all of these are finding ways to bring this to the world in your own language, your own style. And in writing a book, the first thing I do when I write a book is get out all the resentments and unexpressed anger that I have. And that's usually good for 40 to 50 pages, okay? And then you sit down and say, okay, now what am I doing here? What am I doing here now? And after you figure out whether you have anything to say or not, then you extract all that anger because it's not useful. My declaring what's wrong with the world doesn't take me anywhere. Anyway. So other thoughts that struck you? And I like the notion I'm wanting to be hit by lightning. I'm always tempted to go out in the storm and say, okay, I've been waiting all my life. And that's a nice thing about aging is if you don't have a future, then you know, you don't have to worry about things too much other than how to get through the day. And right now, my challenge is get in and out of small cars. So as long as I have an extra 15 minutes, I can do it on both directions. And my wife likes small cars, so we bought a small car. And I figured, well, one of these days, but if I'm lucky, I'll get stuck in it instead of out. So you want to ask, anyway, enough talking.
Well, I, for one, will say, please don't go outside and get struck by lightning. Let's not invite that into the world. We did have a lot of people submit questions, so let's go ahead maybe and get to at least a couple of them. One of them was, as you think about the early days, right? The early days, you mentioned ESSO and when you began the flawless consulting journey, and even your journey as a consultant. What beliefs did you hold true in your earlier practice or even in your earlier versions of flawless that you now see as myths or not necessarily true? Or what was the hardest for you to let go of?
Wow. Probably the story I had about myself. And I always felt I was marginal. And I don't care what the world told me, I was committed to that point of view. And I always felt I've written all these books. There's not one bit of research, evidence, or proof in any of them. And I always felt that mattered. And I realized that I guess not. But I don't know. First 30 years, I remember when I was 26, I was doing a team building with a consulting firm in Atlanta. In the middle of the night, I woke up and I was, what's going on with me? I don't have feelings. What's going on here? And I realized I knew what I was doing. I thought, damn, I did good work today. Maybe I do have a future. So those are all the personal things. In terms of the world, I still thought people at the top mattered. I remember my first client was fine ass food stores, 700 stores in New England. And I finally got to meet the boss. And I thought, oh my God, I hope this goes well. I bought a new tie, I ironed my shirt. And I remember Hilly Cohen was his name, going to his office, bigger than my home. And I thought and first thing he did was start whining and complaining to me about the ketchup. And I said, what's the problem with the ketchup? I thought we were going to, initiate a large scale transformation. But what's the matter with the ketchup? He said, it's too thin. And I said, wow, that must be upsetting. He says, yeah, you think as I run this place, they would make the ketchup thicker, at least at my table in the dining room. But I can't get them to do that. And I thought, holy shit. That was my first clue that maybe the people running things are not in a position to make a difference. And so it took me a long time to wean myself away from wanting to work with top management. They matter, but mostly they can stop things. They can't launch anything. I don't have a good answer to that question. Mostly I just, you are part of the dominant culture. You're part of your colonial, you're participating in it all. The other thing that changed for me is when I started answering my own questions. So I was in a group in Cincinnati, and I always liked the small group. The question is, what's courage is required of you now? And I love that question. And Damon said, Peter, what's your answer to that question? Oh, shit. And I said, I'll tell you with courage, I'm afraid to show up where I live. I write about community, but I haven't really tried it. And so I just think, over time, you begin to believe what you've been talking about. And once in a while, you even embody it. And it's never. So I thought there was a safe path. And I've discovered there's not. My gratitude is I stayed interested, even now. I don't know whether I'm in the fourth quarter or double overtime, but I'm just grateful that I'm still interested. Give me an
Thank
easy
you.
question, would you?
We'll see if it's easy. I think it's a good aligned with what you just answered. But for many people who are implementing flawless consulting, they're internal consultants. They're operating in a space that is of the dominant culture, which you've mentioned, right? So how do I, as somebody as an internal consultant who's not in a position of authority, contract with people who are in positions of authority? How do I help the people around me implement this methodology when I'm not the person who has the power to say, this is what we're doing?
Exactly. It begins by writing down that question on a piece of paper, crumpling up that question into a ball and put it in your God box. Or sometimes we would put it in a fire. That question doesn't take me anymore. But that's the question all of us live with. And I remember feeling that strongly. J&J was my second big client. And I was going to see Ed Beaumont, who's a big executive. And she says, he's in there waiting for you. Thank you. I walk in, the room's empty. And I think, what's going on here? And then the wall opens, and it's a suite, and he's coming out of a room larger than any place I ever lived in. And it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't there to change him. I was there to help him feel understood. And I wanted his support, but I didn't want him to do anything. And so let go to the notion that people can do something because of their level or they matter the most. They don't. They're just players, and they want to be seen and understood. And I learned after a while that when people say, what do you think I should do? Nothing comes to mind at the moment. What kind of consultant are you? I have the same question. Now, you'll say it in different ways depending on where you are. But I think the notion that I stopped treating the top as if they matter. Stop treating rooms as if it's a place I have to get somewhere, implement somewhere. I just want to help people get connected with each other. And I know if I do, then I'll have made a difference. And it's hard because it's not why they bring you in. But it took me a long time to stop treating the top as if they matter. They don't not matter, but they're not. The other thing that triggers that question is, I'm looking for people looking for me. I had an advisor early days named Curly Jones. Of course, he was bald. I called him Curly. That worked for Exxon. And I said, he said, first thing is, you're not rich enough to change anybody's mind. So you got to look for people looking for you. And I thought, wow. And so I just held on to that. And if people aren't looking for me, I just think, thank you. I'm disappointed in what you're doing. I know you are. I got that. But what are you going to do about that, Peter? Nothing comes to mind at the moment. No, I may not say that, but it's a stance to be there. And it's just hard to let go because the whole world is only interested in the credentialed people. They're only interested in the corner office. And the news is a nightmare now. not because of what they report, but what they give attention to. So maybe my job is to help people find something else to give attention to. That'll take them somewhere. What's your contribution to the problem? What do you want from each other? What doubts do you have? At J&J, they had a big conflict between marketing, manufacturing, engineering. And the problem was they sold towels with a red stripe, and the red stripe wasn't coming out the way they wanted. And so they all blamed the other. You created expectations, you're an engineer. So I've got 25 people in the room solving the red stripe problem. And I'm trying to be helpful, small groups. Nothing's working. So I said, I got an idea. Let's go around the room. I want each one of you to state out loud who you blame for the red stripe not being where it should be. And don't anybody say anything. And we did. 20 people went around. I blame marketing. I blame this, blah, blah. And then we said silence. And they said, okay, let's talk about what we want to do together. And so even there, what I did was help them pay attention to what wasn't working. So I think that's part of the gift that you are, is you invite people to pay attention to something that would take them somewhere. And not to fall in love, but to be useful and more authentic with each other. And it takes a long time to trust who you are and what you're doing there. Because you always feel afraid to be found out. You know, every time you write anything down, you know, you turn it in to, because you said you would, but you don't want to make eye contact when they read it. Period.
Thank you. Gary, I see you have your hand raised.
Well, I was thinking about a long time ago when I was working with a group of internal my county was forming an internal organizational consultant group, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. I still don't know, but I don't care as much anymore whether I know or what people think about whether I know it or not. But we were sitting there and we had all read Flawless Consultant, and one of my friends put the book down on the table and said, "This really isn't about consulting." And it's not. For me, it has not been about consulting. It has been a path, and a way to because we are seeking each other. We are people who connect with each other. And this, you know, there's ways of being here, because I would contend that the other way that people care about things is outcomes. And I have been the consultant role, but mostly I've been a leader in local government using these tools to transform government. And if you can present to your community and people outcomes, desired outcomes, I found that unless people are screaming or the police are showing up, people really don't care how you get those outcomes. They want the outcome. But if you can produce outcomes using this work that are healthy for the organization and healthy, people will let you do things. But it's about relationship. It's about how we are with each other. Because in the end, I mean, I say this all the time, it's all a human endeavor. But I always appreciate Peter's view, because there's something there about the way I see the world as well. And being here, I'm here with all of you because we share something in the way that we see how things work. So, but it's really not about consulting, Peter. But you probably figured that out.
I named the book to sell it, damn it. If it hadn't sold so well, I'd rename it. That's true. They said, what do you want to call the book? And I had some long. They said, you want to sell the book? I don't know. Well, if you want to sell the book, you got to get people's attention. It took me about a minute to say, I want to sell the book.
Yeah.
But what you say, Gary, and you're in the most difficult, you know, to be local government, make a career of that. And it's not about consulting, because it implies in that word that I know something you don't.
Yeah.
It's about connecting. If I could rename the book, I'd make something about connection. And that's the work we're doing now. Is the tagline is connection is the content. We're not there to be helpful. We're help them to reconstruct the way they choose to be together. And it's not for the sake of affection. I don't ever ask people, how do you feel about each other? I don't ask them to give feedback to each other. I say, well, what do you care about? Safety, bottom line. So what do you want from each other in order to create that? And that's the relationship part. And thank you, Gary.
I think because we're talking about relationships so much, and it is so much a part of Flawless, one of the questions that we received, which I feel like we have to touch on, is the 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 recent emergence of AI, and specifically AI into the consulting space and AI as a consultant. How do we as consultants inside organizations, outside organizations, navigate, talk about AI?
With compassion. AI is beautiful but it doesn't do anything that matters. It's wonderful in analyzing, bringing things together, but it's mute on what do I want from you? I can't say to AI, would you tell that person what I want from them so I don't have to? And so it's a glorification of information, credential, knowledge, science, but it doesn't mean it matters. I find it interesting. I thought the telephone was interesting. I used to be limited to the length of the cord as to where I could talk to people. As a child, it was hard to find a closet and a cord long enough to get there. But it doesn't mean it's important. Is it impactful? Of course it is. But not on things that matter. Not who we are, who I am, who you are. So I just welcome it. Hi, how are you? But I don't treat it as if it matters. It's just, it's a technology and it's designed for convenience and speed and lower cost. Well, so is the car. So is electricity. It took years before we electrified the country. So I don't know. That's all. It's nice. But don't treat it as if it changes anything. It doesn't change anything. It just makes things happen a little quicker. The nice thing, it's a substitute for thinking, if that's what I'm looking for. If I say, hey, I don't want to have another thought, chat, how you doing? And but it's what people want to talk about because it's so technologically convenient and fast. Cheap, I guess. I don't know. Outsourced thinking, right? But it's in every talk I read by OD Network, NTL. What about AI? And nice, charming, past the soul.
Thank you. So one last question. Of all of the aspects of Flawless Consulting, everything that you wrote about, that you've learned over the year, what do you think is the one, if you had to pick one Flawless Consulting skill that you believe is more vital and more important now than ever?
Dealing with resistance. I mention this every time I start speaking, but my friend Peter Kestenbaum ran a workshop and he said, I'm warning you now, if you argue with me, I'm going to take your side. And I think that's the heart of us getting somewhere, is my being willing to have you have a view of the world that doesn't trigger me. And I know when I'm not useful, it's when I explain the same thing for the third time in the same meeting. And after a while, I learned to get up and go to the bathroom when that was happening. That was my personal tool. I said, Peter, do you think explaining this one more time is going to make a difference? Excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. As soon as you get out of the room, what the hell am I doing? You'll turn around and come back. Oh, that was quick. So I think the resistance is the hardest thing in this world. And it's popular to argue, polarize, debate, but I don't have to participate. I can watch it, but I don't have to. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Well, I think we'd like to give everybody a chance now to talk in your groups around what's striking you, and even in your breakout groups where you're taking this work. So what you've heard, where are you taking this work? Share a little bit more with your small group. Peter, anything else you'd have encourage people to think through or talk about?
You know, the tough conversation is in terms of your being in the world, what's working?
Mm-hmm.
And again, don't give feedback. Don't be helpful. The most unkind thing you could do is ask somebody, what are you going to do about it? The answer is nothing. Let's break into small groups or I'll just keep talking. I hate periods. I like commas and semicolons.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Peter. Maya will open up our breakout rooms. We'll have a chance to visit and then we'll come back if there's any last minute questions and one more chance to connect. So as you were sharing in your breakout rooms, again, anything strike you as you were talking with your breakout group? John, thank you.
Well, I was struck by the power. Credentializing came up quite strongly, and
Mhm.
personally, I was struck by the paradox of credentializing and pedestalizing Peter myself. So, sort of showing up is a part of why I've showed up. Like, I'll get a bit of Peter, and then I'll have a little, like a tonic, like a little drop in my water, and then I'll have a stronger brew. But I realized the contradiction in that, and the fan club of Peter. Peter's wonderful, and it's reenacting the same pattern, which
Mhm.
shows up, and it's humbling, I guess, to see how it's out there, but it remains deeply embedded in me, and so it's sort of like it's the just in this small group, it's perhaps more visible than if we were 100 or 150. It's like, you say you want to connect, but are noticing my shrinking away in my little tile, keeping quiet. So there's all these contradictions, which sit alongside each other, coexist. But yeah, the discomfort of being riddled with contradictions, but so is everybody else. So maybe that's the entry point to welcome to citizen land rather than to status and role and credential land.
Beautiful.
Thank you, John.
I'd like, somebody said, for every great idea, the opposite is also true. And I found that very liberating. And I know what you mean. You come because Peter, you decide who I am. Thank you for that. And also, we come to, that's not why we're here. Both things are true.
Thank you. Avril.
Hi. Yeah. And one of the things we got very quickly onto in quite political actually in our group. And because we all sort of decry how difficult it is to get people to understand how important relationship is and how core and baseline it is, right? And people think it's fluffy and everything. And then realizing that actually the people that were kind of fighting, honestly, at this point politically, they recognize the importance of relationship, and how do we know that is because they're doing everything they can to undermine it. That the systems that we're living in right now are trying to atomize us, fracture us, isolate us, keep us apart from each other. And what greater sign of the importance of relationship than the fact that people are actively trying to undermine relationships? So that's like kind of an interesting little ping that came up for me anyway.
Our our isolation, in a sense, is by design,
Absolutely.
because we're easier to control if I feel like I'm alone.
Yep.
And one of the things we're playing with is to get rid of the word of poverty and say we call people economically isolated. If they call them poor, then I have to figure out how do I get them to make more money. If they're isolated, then how do I bring them together?
Right. Reframing. That's so good. I love that.
I like, John, what you said, why am I so quiet? I was doing something with Meg years ago, and we asked for a volunteer to be a case study for the 12 of us that were there to learn about something. Nobody said a thing. Meg leans over and says, Peter, perhaps we should move on. This isn't going well. And it dawned on me. So I said, would you talk to your neighbor? What's the story you're telling yourself about not saying anything? And so there's always little ways that if something's not working, then you engage people in understanding what's not working. Halfway through every meeting, you can ask, are you getting what you came for? In that question, I'm treating you as if you're creating this world. And I think part of your work in the world is to help people realize that they're not the audience, they're producing the performance. And that's what these structures are for, is to confront people with their own agency. And it's a hard one. And other thoughts you're having, especially those what's the story you're telling yourself about not saying anything so far?
I'm telling myself something about resistance.
Yours?
Well, kind of, but I read in a book that somebody wrote with Peter Kesselbaum, I don't know who that person was, that people don't resist change, they resist coercion. So the idea of resistance, that's the most relevant, and that's the deepest invitation right now. So if they aren't resisting change, they're resisting coercion. Well, what is the coercion that the folks we're here for, who have looked for us, who we have looked for, and they're resisting not change, but coercion? What's the coercion they're resisting? And that's I'm not saying I know, but I'm saying that oftentimes we hear the word resistance to change, but it's there's really more than that. So that's
Anytime you have something in mind for me, it's a form of coercion. And that's what your work in the world is, to decolonize the rooms that you're in. And even if my having something in mind for you is pure love, compassion, it's still coercive. I have something in mind for you. And it's hard to know what to do with that. That's why the dissent conversation is so useful. Because you say, what doubts do you have about what we're doing here? I could ask you that now. What doubts do you have about this experience? It's kind of paradoxical. Here's Peter, and yet the small groups are the most energy, and it creates more energy than us all being together with Peter. And that's the world, the small version of the world we're in. And I always like asking people before we're gone, what's going on with you? What's working here? Jasmine, goodbye. Dropped your commute. Nice.
think one thing I've noticed, Peter, in conversation with you this today and then other conversations and times when you're talking is just your capacity to be able to ask questions that really compel people to pause and maybe think differently. And so, how do we as consultants kind of lean into that? It's an art, is it a gift, is it something we can learn? I've been asked that question, right? How do you know what to ask or when to ask?
Exactly. You know, you collect questions, and some work and some don't. And it's, I don't know, I just love the notion that the questions bring us together and the answers keep us apart. And some of the questions, I remember working with a group of urban youth, 80 of them with adults in a room. And I'm in front with a microphone. Nothing I'm doing is working. What's the crowd? Leave me alone. Finally, it dawned on me. I said, break into group, youth on one side, adults on the other. What doesn't the other side understand about you? It took me 40 minutes to come up with that question, but then I couldn't get them back. It produced energy. And so sometimes in the room, you see what's not working, because you can tell when energy is being consumed versus being produced. And you say, oh, what's the question I can give them? Will create energy. And sometimes it's a not. What don't they understand about you? And I salvaged that session with that question. And they didn't want to come back, leave us alone. And I brought them back and I said, okay, I'd like you to stand up and answer to the other side, outside the room. I said, if you're an adult, don't point and don't give advice. I want you to say what doesn't this youth understand about you? They couldn't do it. The youth got up and said blah, blah, on and on and on, great. And the adults would say, why don't you, why don't you, why don't you? And I thought, oh my God. But, you know, the question produces energy or it doesn't. And why stick with one if it doesn't? And I know questions about history and what got you here don't produce energy. In meetings, people stand up, especially in the community world, and they'll give their speech. And I always ask them, how many times have you given that speech? Hey, Joe. And anyway.
Thank you. May, you have a question?
Midnight, May, what are you doing?
Yes. Yeah, it's midnight. It's good morning. Good morning to myself too. Yeah, my question to Peter is about the last section in the book, Flawless Consulting. The title is The Final Questions One of Faith. So what kind of faith you want to talk about?
Exactly. You know, faith is the opposite of certainty. And that whether you place it in a God or in Abraham or nobody, if you want to do something important in the world, you're always walking into something unpredictable. And for me, faith is that I have faith that paying attention, doing something wherever I am, it's worth doing, even though I can't see it. And I don't know, last week or something, I remember Ken Murphy and I wanted to hold a workshop at Philip Morris that promised no useful thing will occur. Would you like to come to a 6-series workshop, bringing in philosophers, improv experts, nuns, priests? And our promise to you is that nothing will be practical. Nothing will be useful. You come here, if you want to come or not. And Ken and I scared the hell out of us. So we took us 2 years to make the invitation. And when people came, they said, thank you. We're tired of coming to workshops where we have to list action steps just to make the facilitator happy. And so to me, it's faith that what you're doing and who you are is worth doing, makes a difference, even though you'll never know it. And anybody who wants short-term measurable outcomes is worshiping too small a God. If I want short-term measurable outcomes, then I'll just get more of what I have now. Maybe cuts costs. Maybe AI is a quicker way of my not getting what I want. And
Thank you. Well, in the spirit of how we like to close our workshops and our gatherings, we want to give you an opportunity to return to your groups for 5 minutes, Maya. And in your groups, what is a gift you received from each other today? In this time that we spent with each other, what is one gift or a gifts you received from each other?
And if somebody says something nice to you, don't make a little speech. We know how much therapy money it costs to get you to this delicious point. Okay. Say thank you, tell me more. And part of what we're bringing to the world is an inquiry into. Break us up, Maya. I'll keep talking.
All right.
Thank you, Maya, for your stellar wisdom and your great work, the gift you have provided all of us of keeping us on task and opening and closing the rooms and chatting and all of that. I appreciate you greatly.
My pleasure.
So, Peter, we're closing it at the end of our time together. Seems only fitting that you give us our closing words before we end our session.
No, I don't have a word. I'm just grateful to be with you, be part of what you're creating in the world. I love the small group myself. Anybody else like to give a word? One word, say it out loud. So many of you meant so much to me, Joe and Lee. And
Inquiry.
Can I say something? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. As an Asian, we are not. We don't get used to speak as the first one. But I want to take have some courage to confront myself with my own agency. So the gift I received from the small room with Xian and Ryan was the curiosity, the questions of curiosity and patient listening. That is first thing. And the second thing is the discussion between Xian and myself. Xian has an Asian face. However, she has never grown up in China. And we showed something about like the culture factors in our like courage of confronting with people, confronting with conflicts, and I think the conclusion is that it's not just the Asian things. It's about a human being, like Peter said in the book, in the preface introduction of the fourth edition. It's maybe the human design. So it's both release and also I think it's a common challenge. So it's difficult for everybody, not just for people who are living in Asian culture. It's difficult, but it's still possible. So I think that is kind of faith Peter just talked about. So it's difficult, but we still have faith in that and make it possible. And starting from myself. Thank you.
Thanks for your voice. I think we're in the process of departing patriarchal colonial culture, not fighting it or arguing against it. And this is the methodology of departure. And I first went to Singapore. I asked, did anybody have any comments? Nobody said anything. During the break, Wendy said, Peter, we won't say anything. You have to call on us.
Huh.
And I went back and I started calling on people. Oh my God, the room exploded. Everybody had something to say. And I say, okay, just don't tell on me. Any other comments anybody like to make? A word?
I just want to put in that a feeling of being nourished.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, thank you, Sally. Joe, say something. I always love your voice, even if it doesn't mean anything.
I'm sorry I missed the session. I'm with a client in Egypt, so we ran a little late. It's just the heartwarming, and it touches my soul anytime I'm in this community that you're at the center of it, Peter. So thank you all. Felt very welcome by Robin and John in the trio. So thank you very, very much, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
So Joe brought this into the political arena in Lebanon. It's like Gary brought it into the community. I mean, it's amazing to learn how people are traveling and take it anywhere you are. Did it work? I don't know. Was it worth doing? Absolutely. Everybody said something, but you, Lee, say something, Lee.
Well, I mean, I said in my group, I've been with you so many times, Peter, and I never regret joining again. So thank you for all you have created. I want to share one quick item. You may not remember this, but years ago in a flawless workshop, you had us videotape our want, and I was being videotaped, and you walked out. You almost got in my face. You said, "Say I want," and I said, "I would like," and I hope I get more money. No, I want. Say I want. And you forever contaminated me that whenever I write an email now and I write, I would like, and I hope we, and I edit it and then I go, no, I write, I want to have a big room with chairs that can be moved around. I just did it last week. And I was thinking, wherever you are in the world, you contaminated me in such a healthy virus.
Guilty as charged.
I am.
I was talking to myself and you happened to be in the way.
Yeah, exactly. No, I never forgot
Thanks,
that,
Lee.
and it changed every time I read an email. Thank you, Peter.
Under that is the question, do I have a right to exist? And the answer is most of the time, I'm not sure, but once in a while. Anyway, thank you all.
Amazing.
We contaminate each other. It's a beautiful word. That was what I call an action plan.
Well, thank you, Peter, for
Well,
spending
thank you
some
all.
time with all of us. Thank you all for saying yes to the invitation to join us. It was wonderful to be in community with all of you. Our hope is to continue these conversations, so we'll be communicating more next year, more ways for us to stay connected. Until then, thank you all for being here. I hope you have a wonderful holiday.
Amen.
And again, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you for
so
hosting
much.
these gatherings, Beverly and Maya and Peter.
Thank you.
Good job.
Always
Thank you
good to
for
see you,
starting my
Shen.
day off so nicely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Happy holidays to you all.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy New
You
Year.
too.
For humanity, what you're bringing to the world, that's amazing.
Time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Free,
everyone.
free, free.
Bye. Peter, see you tomorrow.
Yeah, who said that? You?
That was
May.
May.
Good. Get some
Yeah.
Thank
sleep,
you,
for
Mary, for
God's sake.
joining.
You will see a whole room of Asian
Bye,
faces
Mary.
tomorrow.
Thank you
Thank you,
all.
Beverly, Meyer.
Thank you. It was great seeing you, May. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Gary, anything you want to say?
You're muted, Gary.
He knows he's muted. He wants to.
Oh, okay.
No, but I get your intentional connecting through this work, and I have to say that last year was so important to me to be able to circle back and to just, uh, the language is hard, but to rededicate, retrench, to understand, and the faith thing, Peter, because that's when you talked about that faith thing, and I am enough, and it's going to change whether I know how or not. And so I can initiate the change. We'll see where it goes. But thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Gary.
Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
You guys are great. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.